Thank you so much, Marcia. That was beautiful. Thank you. For those of you who don't know, that's from Proverbs. That's the value of a noble woman, and what a gift. Thank you so much for that. Marcia started singing it, ooh, and I thought she was going to do Fields of Gold. I thought that was wonderful. I thought to myself, Marcia, you could just go right into Fields of Gold with all of that. It was just perfect. It was lovely. Happy Mother's Day to each one of you. I follow several Instagram feeds and YouTube feeds on fishing because I like to fish. And so my phone dings throughout the day when they'll catch a big bluefin tuna or when they get into a yellowtail bite or when something happens and someone's posting a picture and I pull out my phone to look at a great big bluefin tuna and think, man, if only I was fishing instead of at work. But yesterday, it kept dinging throughout the day. And I got into my office after I'd been out for a meal or back in from the memorial service, and Barbara and family. It's so nice to have you guys here today after the memorial service yesterday for Bob. And anyway, I got back in, and there were all these messages on there from these fishing guys. And I looked at them, and they were all the same. The boats are empty tomorrow. We can't get anyone. Sign up and come on down to the boats. We're going to discount some prices. One guy said, I only have 11 guys on the boat tomorrow. He said, come on down, the fishing's great. He said, Mother's Day, keeping the boats empty. And I thought to myself, if his mother could hear him, I felt like recording it and finding out who his mother was and posting it on the internet and sending it to his mom and saying, look what your son, I thought if his mom's following him, he's in deep trouble right now. Mother's Day, keeping the boats empty. And I thought if these guys really wanted to be good sons, what they would do is they'd say, Moms, come on out free today. Moms, the boats are open to you free today, and you can come fishing. Now, how many of you ladies would have gone fishing? I didn't think so. Yeah, well, yeah, I was going to say Jean. Jean would have been there for sure. But other than that, it might not have been too full. I am very blessed that for the first 15 years of our ministry here at Central Community, Mother's Day would be packed year after year for nothing else with my family. My family, because my mother was alive. And my mother would be here, and we would have a birthday dinner after Sunday church because we'd wrap all the May birthdays into that, Debbie's birthdays in May and all the other May birthdays that were wrapped into that. And we would have Mother's Day celebrate, which meant my siblings all needed to be here. And they would grouse about it. This is the worst day of the year to have to drive back to Orange County on the 91 freeway. It's horrible out there, Eric, but we would all get together. My dad would stand up and he would sing a song for Mom. We would enjoy the time together, and I would get to look out and see a huge number of my family members all in church together. And I've thought about what it means for a mom who pours into her family. You know, the one thing I want from you on Mother's Day is to be in church with me. The one thing I want, more than a card, because I don't know how many of you went out and got a card for your wife or for your mom, if your mom's still living. I got one for Debbie today. And I do it before, I go out and run on Sunday mornings. And so I always go by Albertsons. I normally get chocolate-covered strawberries, but I knew the kids were having a brunch for Mother's Day today, so I didn't do that. I ran in, and I carry money with my phone in my pockets. I ran into the Mother's Day cards. I started shopping down the Mother's Day lines, and I realized I hadn't worn my glasses. And I couldn't tell the birthday cards from the Mother's Day cards. And I'm walking along looking at it thinking, I don't want to bring a really stupid card home. And I'm looking at all of it. I couldn't tell any of it. And there's this young guy standing next to me, and he's diligently looking, and I'm assuming he's getting a Mother's Day card for his mom or his wife or someone. And so I looked at him and I said, can I ask you a really embarrassing question? He said, what's that? I said, which ones of these are the Mother's Day cards? And he said, well, these ones right in front of me. Why is that? And I said, well, I don't have my glasses. I was out on a run, and I really can't read them without my glasses. I said, which ones are the Mother's Day cards for the wife? He says, well, these ones right here. I said, can you help me find a really nice one? And so because of someone coming alongside me today, Debbie got a really nice Mother's Day card. I kid you not, I didn't know they made them so nice. I was checking out, the woman said to me, that'll be $10.78. I mean, $10 for a Mother's Day card? She's not my mother. But I'm just kidding, Debbie. It was worth every penny of it. But I thought about how we age through our years in Mother's Day. And 31 years ago was my first Mother's Day here in Riverside. So, I mean, we were a whole different group of people 31 years ago. Debbie and I were different people 31 years ago. Our children were different people. They were little kids. And now life goes by so quickly, and now I'm the doddering old man in the cards section saying, young man, could you read the cards for me, please? I want a $10 is how much? And feeling like Mr. Magoo as I come out of the whole place, and thinking to and half of you don't know who Mr. Magoo is, which is the really sad part about it. But I thought about how many things our mothers taught us that we don't even remember that our mothers taught us. I mean, the most important things in our lives. And you don't remember when your mother taught you how to sit up. You don't remember when your mother taught you how to reach your arms out, trying to get you to stand. You don't remember when your mother held on to your hands and was so proud of when you could stand for the very first time, and she went and wrote it in a baby book someplace or took a picture. You don't remember when your mother held your hands and you took your first steps. I think about how many times in life I've heard someone question or doubt their mother. And in my mind, I'm processing all the things that their mother taught them that they don't even remember. When their mother potty trained them so that they could have a life of success without having to worry about not being potty trained as an adult, which would be thoroughly embarrassing until you're my age, which they make diapers for. Could you show me which aisle they have those on, young man? And I'm guessing that's coming too. But either way, it's one of those things that we just forget completely about what we've been taught. And so I've been talking about how to live. There's a card inside your program. Last week, I talked about the first step in how to live is we need to remember how to breathe. Because so many of us, we get to a spot where it's no different when you get to the ER and they put a bag over your mouth and say, man, just breathe. Just breathe. You're having an anxiety attack. We get to a spot where we just forget how to breathe. And yet it's how life started. And in the same way, we come to a spot where we forget how to stand. And we forget that standing, well, it wasn't easy. For those of you who have little children or you have grandchildren, you know, you watch them battle with standing. They don't do it the very first try. I mean, they work at it for not just days or weeks, but usually months, trying to stand, trying to get up as you hold on to their hands and as you pull them up, just trying to stand. They're never going to remember it. They're never going to know all the times Mom held on to their precious little hands in love, lifting them up so that they could stand, so that someday they could walk. And for us, we cannot live until we learn how to stand. And in life, there are so many things that knock us down. There are so many times that we go through that we're just absolutely flat on our back, and we wonder, why is it so hard for me to get up? And we don't remember that it wasn't easy standing in the first place. We didn't stand in the first place by ourselves. We needed help. And we should never expect it to be easy to stand now. And we should never expect to stand all on our own now, or to be ashamed of receiving the help that we need to stand. You see, this is how we live. It's not how we go through the motions of going to work every single day. It's not how we go through the motions of making certain that we look like everyone else in the world. This is how we stand, and we're who God created us to be. By going through the difficult times together, by reaching out our hands and knowing that we need help, and by grasping on with everything we've got and giving it everything our little legs will give us so that we can get up. I love the text in your card this morning from the Gospel of John. It's famous, famous, famous. You've heard it in many weddings and not even known it. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today in the sight of God. And already you thought I was doing a Prince song, didn't you? Just like I thought Marcia was doing a Sting song. Do you know, dearly beloved, we are gathered here today? What song is that? Anyone know? You don't even know. Come on, Lord helps you. Go home and look it up. Yeah, it's a great Prince song. Dearly beloved, we are gathered today in the sight of God and in the presence of these witnesses, joined together, this man and this woman, in the presence of these witnesses, which is an holy matrimony, which is an honorable estate, instituted of God, and honored or magnified with his presence, where? In Cana of Galilee. And everyone hears that and just kind of goes right by it. What does that mean? In Cana? I don't know where Cana of Galilee. I don't know why, what that means. Whose presence? Jesus' presence in Cana of Galilee at a wedding. This story right here on the front of your card. This is where Jesus was at a wedding, and this is why it's talked about in every single marriage ceremony that you hear. This is it. This is the story right here from the Gospel of John, the 2nd chapter. It says, the next day there was a wedding celebration in the village of Cana in Galilee, which is why we say those words. Jesus' mother was there. So important. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples were also invited to the celebration. The wine supply ran out during the festivities, so Jesus' mother told him, they have no more wine. Dear woman, that's not our problem, Jesus replied. My time has not yet come. But his mother told the servants, do whatever he tells you. Standing nearby were 6 stone water jars used for Jewish ceremonial washing. Each could hold 20 to 30 gallons. I'm just curious, if we had a 20 to 30 gallon jar here, how much would that jar probably weigh if it was made out of clay, empty? What do you think, 100, couple hundred pounds made out of clay? It would weigh hundreds of pounds anyway, right? It wouldn't be light. And if you were to fill it with water, if I were to tell you right now, what I need you to do, Ralph, is I need you to take that out and I need you to fill these with water. How long would it take you to fill them with water? Even with a hose? Even with a hose, could you have it done by the end of the service? I'm guessing probably not. What if you had to draw that water from a well with a bucket? How long would it take you? Are you thinking maybe hours? And once it was full, how much would that thing weigh? Like maybe 1,000 pounds? 700 pounds? And how many people would it take to carry it? A group? A really big group? It would take a group. This story, we act like it happened like that. These miracles in life, we act like they happen like that. Jesus said, those jugs over there, fill them with water. It didn't happen just like that. You waiting for a miracle in your life, and you're expecting it to happen just like that? In the Bible, it almost never happened just like that. I can prove it. This story right here. You go out and try filling those jugs with water and see how long that miracle's about to take. It took quite a while. God works in mysterious ways, friends. And sometimes, if you look at mysterious, it's not the longest or shortest word in the it's out there as a word even. It takes a while even to do mysterious. Do whatever it tells you. Standing nearby were 6 stone water jars used for Jewish ceremonial washing. That means these were the jars that they held the water in for when they came in and they washed their hands, they washed their face, they washed their feet. So these were the jars that they took the water from for washing their feet, which meant they stood near the doorway. They were near the doorway. This is where they took the water for washing their hands, washing their face before they did any meal, washing their feet. The ceremonial washing. Each could hold 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus told the servants, fill the jars with water. When the jars had been filled, the next morning, I don't know, whenever that was, when the jars had been filled, he said, now dip some out and take it to the master of the ceremonies. So the servants followed his instructions. When the master of ceremonies tasted the water that was now wine, not knowing where it had come from, though of course the servants knew, he called the bridegroom over. A host always serves the best wine first, he said. Then when everyone has had a lot to drink, he brings out the less expensive wine. But you have kept the best until now. This miraculous sign at Cana in Galilee was the first time Jesus revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. After the wedding, he went to Capernaum for a few days with his mother, his brothers, and his disciples. This text is used for many reasons in the scriptures. Often it's used to point out the first miracle in the scriptures. It's used at almost every wedding, especially all Orthodox weddings around the world today, to show that Jesus has ordained marriage by his presence in Cana of Galilee. I use it still today when I do weddings. When you were married, it was possibly used. When Debbie and I were married, this text was used. This text is used by people to show that it's okay to drink, because after all, Jesus was involved in a wedding to drink. I tried to use that all the time with my parents. I grew up in a home that was completely teetotaler. We were no alcohol in our home, and I would use this text every single time it came up. And I would say, Mom, look, Jesus and the disciples drank. Jesus even made wine. And my mother always told me the same thing. Any wine that Jesus makes, you can drink. Until then, she would say, until then, you stay away from it. And so moms, you feel free to use that. My mom used it with me, and all of us kids had that on a regular basis, so that's what we were told. I believe this text, unfortunately, is left out as a Mother's Day text, because from beginning to end, this is a Mother's Day story. From beginning to end, in the Gospel of John, John goes out of his way to write, and Jesus' mother was there. To the very end, it closes off with, and Jesus went to spend some time at his mother's home with his disciples, with his brothers. From beginning to end, this is a story about a mom's impact on her child. At the very beginning of his ministry, it says this is the first miracle that Jesus did. This is the first time that Jesus was glorified. This is the first time that his disciples actually believed that he was who he said he was. This is it. And who was there spurring that moment on but Mom? Moms, you were so important. And moms, all the way from the beginning of time to the Messiah to this moment right now, you have been essential in our lives. And for the times that you think to yourself, Pastor Eric, if you knew me, you would know I am definitely no Mary in this moment. I know many of you think, Pastor Eric, if you knew me, I just don't qualify to be that kind of mom. And I would just like to remind you of the times you taught a child how to stand, how to walk. You had the patience to potty train. You had the patience to get a child on the right track. When that child, they couldn't be where they're at today without that very early love that came from you. I'm a great believer that, I don't know how many of you are grandparents, I am, and I've got 5 of the most wonderful grandchildren in the world that I would hold up against yours any day of the week. I mean, as far as cute, intelligent, just wonderful in every single way. Yeah, I know, Al, you think yours are good. Mine, I'll tell you. And I used to love, early in my ministry here, I would love to make fun of all the grandparents bragging of their grandkids. Say, put those grandparent pictures away, I can't stand them. Now I'm thoroughly guilty. What can I say? But what I've learned about grandchildren is this, is that the newest one is always the best one as far as I'm concerned. I don't know how that works with any of the rest of you. I don't know how it's going to work as they all get older, but in my mind, the newest one is always the best one. For the longest time, it was Skipper, and Skipper had my heart. She is such a character in so many ways. It's hard to be moved around. And now there's little Sunny, and Sunny's just a year old, and just a month ago she turned a year old, and she is just the cutest little kid, but she still isn't walking, which is driving her parents a little bit crazy. Fortunately, she's the third child, so they're not freaking out and taking her to a doctor and saying, she's not walking yet, she's 12 months old, They're not doing any of that kind of stuff yet because she's the third child, and they now realize that different kids walk at different times. But Sunny loves to stand up. Sunny loves to stand up and hold your fingers. She stands up, and she's got that cute little in the diaper, 1-year-old bottom, and she stands up, and then Stephanie says, oh, take your fingers away, and watch, and you'll stand up, and she stands there like this. And then you just say, oh, come here, Sonny, come here. And she'll start to put her hands out, and then she'll smile really big and plop right down onto her bottom, then crawl right to you, because she's got crawling down pat. She can get all over the place. Crawling, it's no problem. And I think about how many of us, spiritually, this is still where we're at with the Lord. And we feel so proud. We're in church. Look at me. Oh, man, I'm listening to the pastor. I may even fill out the blanks. Bonk, and then we go out and we're right on our keister again. And the Father's saying, you almost were there, man. You were so close. And for each of us, when we're standing, this is the beginning. This is not being done. This is just the beginning to us walking. This is just the beginning to us running. This is the beginning to going into the whole world and making disciples. This is just the beginning of what we need to do to live. So on the back of your card, it says there are 5 ways that miracles begin with Mom. First way is that Mom is there. Her presence alone carries power. Mom is there. Her presence alone carries power. It's hard for us to imagine Jesus as a toddler. We have some textual proof of Jesus as a teenager. We knew he ran off. And he said, didn't you know I must be about my Father's business? When he ran off from his parents and he was chastised by them. But other than that, we don't have a whole lot about Jesus as a kid. It's hard for us to imagine Jesus waking up with a nightmare of hell and crying and screaming and his mom coming and sitting next to him. But what mom hasn't gone and sat next to a child who had a nightmare? And the child crying and not going back to sleep and then getting up to leave. And the mom, no, stay, please stay. Mom staying, holding the hand, and then the child falling back to sleep just because mom was there. That's all it took. You see, in this first miracle, what it took was just mom to be there. It says Jesus' mother was there. And you see, that presence alone carries great power. In our household, we lost Debbie's mom this last month, and it's been hard. It's been a sad time. It's been a somber month. All of you know what it's like to go through that, or many of you know what it's like to go through those times. Just the presence. Not the encouraging word, not the love you, not the all of those things that goes along with it. But just the very presence of knowing mom's there. She had lived with us for 4 years after Dad died. Just the presence of knowing she was near. Each of us have that great knowledge. I loved what Abraham Lincoln said. I try to use this quote every single Mother's Day. He said, I remember my mother's prayers, and they have always followed me. They have clung to me all my life. I was one of those kids who had nightmares. I remember screaming out at night, and I remember sharing a room with my brother, and my brother just threatening to hit me when I had nightmares. but my mom protecting me from my brothers, sitting on my bedside, coming in, kissing me, praying with me, holding my hand until I was back asleep. Jesus' mother was there, and miracles happened. Mom, your presence in church, your presence in the lives of children, your presence, it's the beginning of miracles. It's not even that you have to do anything so wonderful. Your presence alone is the beginning of miracles. Second way miracles begin with Mom is that she sees the need others might easily overlook. She sees the need that mothers might easily overlook. Okay, guys, let me ask you a question. How many of you, do the women in your life see things that you don't see? Like really easily, like you're blind to. Just you and me, Al, huh? You and me and Al and Marty. That's about it. The rest of you guys are that insightful. I'm really impressed. I'll tell you what, it's incredible what Debbie sees that I didn't even notice. It's incredible what Debbie sees that I didn't even think of, that I didn't even think was important. And you see, she sees a need that it says Jesus' mother told him, they have no more wine. What does Jesus say? The King James is great. The King James on this is great. If you've got a King James Bible, he says, hey, woman, what is that to me? I mean, I used to look at that verse when I was a kid, and I would think to myself, okay, if I had said to my mother, woman, what is that to me? It would have been whack like that. I mean, it would have been, nobody would have called CPS on my mom. There would have been nothing. It would have just a quick back of the hand from my mom, just like that. And I'm thinking, here's Jesus saying, woman, what is that to me? But here they translate it out much more nicely in the New Living Translation to keep Jesus out of CPS control here, you know. It says, Jesus' mother told him, they have no more wine. And Jesus, this is what he says, you know, it's not my time. It's not my time. This is not my concern. This is not my concern. What's he saying? He's saying what a lot of guys would say. Let them go to Bevmo. I mean, you know, who cares? They got no more wine. Let them go down to the liquor store. This is not my issue. This is not my issue. Leave me out of it. And for us, I love Irma Bombeck. I would have never known Irma Bombeck with the exception of my mother. My mother loved Irma Bombeck and made us kids read Irma Bombeck. Did any of you have to read Irma Bombeck growing up? And it was because of my mom. I mean, mom would cut things out of the newspaper and put them on the refrigerator. Mom would buy her books. Oh, you've got to read this. Mom would be laughing somewhere. Irma Bombeck says this, when your mother asks, do you want a piece of advice? It is a mere formality. It doesn't matter if you answer yes or no. You're going to get it anyway. True or false? So true. I'll tell you what. Your mother, if you're blessed enough to still have a living mother, and if she asks you, do you want a piece of advice? Say yes. I mean, just say yes, because you're going to get it either way. It's coming your direction. And if she says, do you want a piece of advice? She's probably been waiting to unload on you. I mean, by the time it got up to, boy, does this kid need this piece of advice, it's time. So Jesus' mother, she was saying, hey, they're out of wine. Woman, what has that to do with me? And then it goes on next. See, she saw the need. Third way miracles begin with Mom is that she believes and acts in faith, expecting miracles. His mother told the servants, do whatever he tells you. What did he say? He said, what does that have to do with me? This is not my time. People will preach on this entire text, and they'll go into this and they'll say, let us tell you about the time of Jesus. This is where Jesus says this was not yet his time. And this is the revealing of Christ Jesus. And a lot of theology that God bless him for wanting to do all that kind of theological study. How much of that does that really apply to your life? I mean, how much of that are you going to put to work in your life this week? None of it. You can walk home and you can say, man, did I have a really good history lesson at church today? Man, that pastor, he really has got his theology down. We all get it from the same commentaries and the same theologians. Friends, what I want to do is I want to put something into your hands that you can apply this week. And as far as I'm concerned, that's what's important. You see, moms believe and act in faith, expecting miracles. His mother told the servants, Do whatever he tells you. And all the servants were now standing alert. They knew that they needed to do whatever Jesus said. Jesus went on to say, see all those great big cisterns over there? The ones we use for ceremonial cleaning? The ones that everyone washed their feet with when they came in? Yeah, those ones. Go out and refill them. Should we wash them first with bleach or something? Just go out and fill them up with water. It's going to take a long time and they're heavy. It took us all day to fill them up. Just go out and fill them. See, suddenly do whatever he says takes a whole new context. I mean, this was a big job. Do whatever he says. And whatever he says was a big task. They weren't anxious to go about this task. Suddenly they're moving around the house. Suddenly they're having to move all these great big ceremonial 20 and 30 gallon. I don't know how many of you have a 20 or 30 gallon jug at home. I don't. That's a great big jug. I don't know how many of you have a 20 or 30 gallon tub at home. I don't. That's a great big tub. And so there it is. I mean, I'm assuming it would stand somewhere like this. I don't know. It would be pretty good size. And it would be up there really big. And a gallon weighs what, 6 pounds? 8 pounds? A gallon weighs 8 pounds. So 10 gallons would be what, 80 pounds? 20 gallons would be 160 pounds. 30 gallons would be 240 pounds. And how many of them did they have? They had 6 of them or whatever it was. They had all of these things. They've got all of this weight, just in weight, that they're going to take out. And she says, do whatever he tells them. They must have thinking, this woman's crazy, but we're going to do it. This woman must be nuts, but we're going to do what Jesus tells us to do. Because she said to, because Mom said to. You see, Mom believes in miracles. Julia, our daughter, played tennis in high school. She was on the tennis team for 2 years, and so we went to all the tennis games, and or 3 years, however many years you were on the tennis team, I don't remember. Anyway, we went to all the tennis games and that kind of stuff. But Debbie's always a joy to go to any sport with, because Debbie, and Debbie, I love you and happy Mother's Day. Before I get into the rest of the story, Debbie likes to yell. Debbie likes to yell when we're at sporting events. Debbie likes to yell at the top of her lungs, and Debbie likes to yell regardless whether or not she might understand every single little nuance of the game. Debbie likes to yell because her kid's the one who's in the right, regardless. Debbie likes to yell. And so we would go to these tennis matches, and Julie would be out there playing, and suddenly Debbie would be yelling, and if there was a ball out, which, you know, the tennis players, they call it themselves and do all this kind of stuff. Someone else would say, that wasn't out, that wasn't, you know, and there would be going, I would say, honey, you know, that kid said it was out. You need to accept that. What? That wasn't out. And there it would all go, and I could see Julie over there, Julie always turned this kind of really glorious red to match her Arlington outfit, you know, and so she would be over there just looking beautiful in all of it, and Debbie would just be ready to just go off on the whole thing. And I would think to myself, okay, she did this in soccer. She's doing this in tennis. She did this in t-ball, did this in all the way around, you know. It didn't matter. But here we are doing it again just because she believed. And we all need someone who believes in us. We all need someone who believes in us, not because they understand everything. Did Mary understand everything that was going to happen down the line? Did Mary imagine that Jesus might turn water into wine? She didn't know what was coming next. She had no idea. Any more than Debbie understood tennis. No offense, honey. I mean, she had no idea what was coming next. But she just said, I believe in my son. Do whatever he tells you. And friends, when it comes to following Jesus, following Mary is a good lesson here. Do whatever he tells you. You see, are you Mary or are you the servants here? We're the servants. And if Jesus says, go fill those jugs with water, our job isn't to ask why. What are you going to do with the water? Our job is to say, sure, Jesus. Our job isn't to say, well, that's going to take all night long. They're going to be really heavy. Our job is to say, sure, Jesus. See, our job is to listen to Jesus because we believe in faith. It says nothing else will ever make you as happy or as sad, as proud or as tired as motherhood. I don't know if that's true. Moms, is that true? I'm glad that's true. I posted a hilarious video that I sent to Debbie and the kids yesterday, and the girls yesterday. I wanted to post it on my Facebook, but after I showed Debbie, she said, no, Eric. That's not for your Facebook. It's just not good general consumption stuff. But it was a little boy coming into his mom saying, giving him breakfast on Mother's Day and saying, Mom, what was it like on the day I was born? And she said, well, honey, it was the best day of my life. And then it flashes to her being in transition going, ah! Screaming and everything going on. And then it flashes back to this sweet little boy who's maybe 5 or 6 saying, weren't you afraid, Daddy? And the dad, whoa! And everything going on exactly the way you wouldn't anticipate, you wouldn't expect, but looking a whole lot like a delivery room in transition. And everything that goes on in there. And just so perfect. I mean, and I believe it, nothing else will ever make you as happy or as sad, as proud or as tired as motherhood. Can we ever know all the stuff that goes into it? Not for a minute. Moms, thank you so much. Fourth way that miracles begin with Mom is that she beams, even knowing we're no longer hers. She beams. She smiles. She's proud, even knowing that, in this moment, Jesus doesn't belong to me. Jesus now belongs to the world. Mary was going from releasing the little baby she had in a manger. Mary was going from being the young man who mentored underneath her husband Joseph as a carpenter to releasing him into his now the moment when he experienced his glory, and even his disciples believed in him and releasing him. He was no longer hers. It says, but you have kept the best until now. See, they took it up for him to drink. He didn't know that it was from the foot washing water. The servants were probably standing back thinking they were all going to be decapitated or something. Mary was watching, wondering what was going to happen. He drank it and he said, usually. They serve all the good wine first, and once everyone's a little bit drunk, they bring out the cheap wine, and the gallons of Gallo come out, and they start pouring those all the way around. But you've saved the best for last. You see, that's the way Jesus can be in our lives. He's the best at the last of our lives. Not just the beginning of our lives. He's the best right now for who we are. And Mom believes in that from the beginning. And Mary, I believe, when she heard those words, she was more proud than anyone there. She stood back and she thought, there's Jesus. It's my son. There he goes out into the world. But she had to release. And so how did Jesus respond to that? The fifth way miracles begin with Mom is that she welcomes us, adults, miracles out into the world. And kids, this is a great way to acknowledge your mom. Look what Jesus did. Jesus, here he is, he's on top of the world. He's been at this long, weddings lasted for weeks back then. It wasn't like you went to a wedding for an afternoon and then got to go home and get back to whatever you wanted to do. Weddings lasted for weeks in the Hebrew community. And now the wedding's finally over. Jesus must be anxious to be about his ministry. But what does it say do? It says, after the wedding, he went to Capernaum for a few days with his mother. Never be ashamed to take a few days with your mom. Never be ashamed to go just so she can wrap her arms around you and say, my son, the Messiah. Now, your mother hopefully doesn't say that, but imagine Mary got to say that. Mary got to say, my son. In her heart thinking the Messiah. Mary thinking that. It was always funny for me with my mom here on Mother's Day. She would hug me afterwards and she would tell me something like, honey, I think that was the best Mother's Day message I ever heard preached. My dad would elbow me and say, well, I haven't preached one for a while. And, he would say something like that, but to mom, it was the very best because that's where I was. I was her son who was preaching. Jesus took time to go home, be with his mom. While you have time, take time. While you can, do. Because for each of us, there's coming a time. Debbie and I did that thing yesterday that we won't do too many times, but we went out and the stone had been put on Debbie's mom's grave yesterday, and we hadn't seen it yet, so we went out there and we took flowers. Just a simple thing out at National Cemetery. We went to my mom and dad's grave first. Went out there, and Mom's been gone for 11 years next month. Seems impossible. And then we went over to Debbie's dad and Mom's grave. And just, I'm assuming in the last week or so, put down the stone. Because Mom's only been gone a month. And we stood. The wind was cold. Sun was nearly down, and we cried together. We thanked God. And we walked away. We had the opportunity to have Mom into our home, to have Mom into our lives, and we did. And it was wonderful. No regrets, not one. If I have any regrets, it would be that I don't even know what they were. I loved being around Mom. I loved being around my parents. No regrets. On this Mother's Day, if your mom's alive, take the time with her. Take the time with her. And for those of you whose mom's not alive, thank God for your mom. For those of you who have a broken relationship with your mother, she taught you things that you don't even remember. How to stand, how to go use a bathroom, how to read. You may feel like, oh, Pastor Eric, if you knew the other stuff might not be important right now. What's important is to remember the miracle. She was there. Mary was there at the very beginning. There's a simple prayer at the bottom of the card. It says this: thanks, God, for my mom. Thanks for the many times she reached out for me to stand, encouraged me to walk, and pushed me out the door to run and live. Give me strength to make her proud every day. Thanks. Heavenly Father, I thank you for my mom this morning. Thank you for Debbie's mom. I thank you for Debbie as a mom. I thank you for our daughter Julia as a mom, for our daughter-in-law Stephanie as a mom. I thank you for every mom represented here today, God. I think about the mothers in this room, Father, who have been godly, who have raised up godly children, who have done their best and given their best, God, to build the church. I would ask that you would bless them, Father, in wonderful ways. And Lord Jesus, I thank you for all of our moms, Father. I know they stretch out literally across the nation, Father, and so many of them are home with you today. We thank you for the impact they had on our lives. We would ask that their presence could be real in our hearts in everything we say and do today, that we could honor them with our lives, God. And I thank you for the gift of motherhood. What it means, Father, to live in a world where you could have brought us into being just by snapping your fingers. But instead, you chose to use a woman to carry us. You chose to use the arms of a mother to hold us. You chose to use the presence of a mother to give us power when we were afraid. I would ask that you would empower those mothers here today, God, that you would strengthen them. Let them know that you're with them, Father, this morning. Where we need comfort, where we need encouragement, be with us, Father. And in everything we give thanksgiving. In Jesus' name we pray.